Hello, and welcome back to the Sleep Lab. Tonight we're going to spend some time with one of the gentlest, most quietly devoted creatures in the entire animal kingdom, a baby elephant, small only by the standards of its own enormous family, stumbling on legs it hasn't quite learned to trust yet, surrounded always by aunts, sisters, and a mother who will rarely, if ever, let it wander more than a trunk's length away. Elephant calves are born into one of the most tender, tightly bonded social worlds found anywhere in nature, cared for not by one parent alone, but by an entire herd of watchful, patient relatives who will spend years teaching them everything from how to use their own trunk to how to grieve. Tonight we're going to drift through 100 small, heartwarming facts about them, one gentle detail after another, offered slowly enough that you can simply let each one settle, the way a calf settles beneath its mother's shadow at the end of a long day. Nothing tonight needs to be remembered. Just let it arrive softly, and drift onward into the next, gentler than the last. If this kind of journey is worth your time, a like, a subscribe, or a thought left below helps this small lab keep its lights on for other sleepy minds finding their way here. But for now, there is nothing you need to do except settle in, let your body grow heavy, and let 100 small, tender truths about baby elephants curl up gently around you instead. Let's begin. 1. A newborn elephant calf can weigh between 200 and 300 pounds at birth. And yet within its very first hour of life, it is already wobbly and determined, attempting to stand. 2. Elephant pregnancies last roughly 22 months, the longest gestation period of any land mammal on Earth. This gives a calf nearly 2 full years to develop quietly before ever taking its first breath. 3. A baby elephant is born already able to recognize its mother's voice. It has listened quietly to the low, rumbling calls of its family for many months, safely from within the womb. 4. Newborn calves are covered in a light layer of soft, reddish-brown hair, considerably fuzzier than the wrinkled gray skin most people picture. This soft coat gradually thins and darkens as the calf grows older. 5. A baby elephant cannot fully control its own trunk at birth, and often trips over it, steps on it, or swings it about clumsily. For the first several months of life, it remains more of a curious burden than a useful tool. 6. Learning to use a trunk properly can take a young elephant calf more than a year. Since it contains no bones at all, only muscle, mastering it requires genuine, patient practice rather than simple growth alone. 7. An elephant's trunk contains somewhere between 40,000 and 150,000 individual muscles. It is an extraordinarily complex tool a calf must slowly, gradually learn to control, one careful movement at a time. 8. In its first weeks, a calf often sucks on its own trunk for comfort. Much the way a human baby might suck its thumb, the small motion seems to offer a quiet, familiar sense of reassurance. 9. Baby elephants nurse using their mouth, not their trunk, curling the trunk safely up and out of the way while feeding. This leaves both mother and calf free to settle into a calm, steady rhythm during each feeding. 10. A calf may nurse for up to 4 years, though it typically begins sampling small amounts of solid vegetation within its first few months of life. Nursing, even as it slows, remains an important source of comfort long after it stops being the calf's main meal. 11. Elephant milk is remarkably rich in fat, helping a calf grow quickly during a stage of life when size and strength offer real, genuine protection. Every feeding quietly adds a little more sturdiness to those still wobbly legs. 12. A newborn calf stands roughly 3 feet tall at the shoulder, small only in comparison to its own mother, who may stand 3 or 4 times taller. Beside her, the calf looks almost impossibly small. 13. Elephant herds are matriarchal, led by the oldest and most experienced female, who guides the group using decades of carefully remembered knowledge about food, water, and safety. Her memory becomes the whole herd's quiet compass. 14. A calf is raised not only by its mother but by an entire circle of related females, sometimes called allomothers, who help watch, comfort, and gently guide it. No calf is ever truly left to figure things out entirely alone. 15. Young female elephants often practice caring for calves years before having their own, closely shadowing new mothers to learn the gentle art of raising a baby. It is a kind of apprenticeship passed quietly down through the herd. 16. A baby elephant will typically stay within just a few feet of its mother for the first several years of its life. It rarely strays far enough to ever be truly out of her watchful sight. 17. Elephant calves communicate distress with a specific, high-pitched squeal, instantly recognizable to every adult nearby. The whole herd tends to respond, often rushing gently toward the sound at once. 18. Elephants can communicate using infrasound, low-frequency rumbles far below the range of human hearing. This allows a mother and calf to stay in quiet contact across surprisingly long distances, even when out of sight of one another. 19. A calf can recognize its own mother's specific rumble apart from dozens of other adults in a herd. It is a kind of vocal fingerprint, learned early in life and never forgotten. 20. Elephants have been observed gently touching a newborn calf with their trunks, one after another, almost like a quiet, careful greeting. It welcomes the newest member of the family into the herd's close, watchful circle. 21. Baby elephants love to play, often chasing birds, splashing in mud, or gently wrestling with other calves their own age. Play fills much of a young calf's day, woven naturally between rest and feeding. 22. Play helps young elephants build coordination, strength, and the social skills they will rely on for the rest of their long lives. Even the clumsiest tumble is, quietly, a kind of early education. 23. A calf's ears are proportionally smaller than an adult's, growing larger gradually over several years as the animal itself continues to grow. Watching a calf's ears slowly stretch is one small, visible sign of its steady growth. 24. Elephants use their large ears to help regulate body temperature, flapping them gently to cool the blood vessels running close beneath the skin surface. Even a young calf begins this gentle flapping early on. 25. A baby elephant's skin, though it will eventually thicken considerably, remains sensitive enough in early life that sunburn is a genuine concern. This is part of why mud baths and a mother's shade matter so much in those early months. 26. Elephants coat themselves in mud not simply for cooling, but as a natural sunscreen and insect repellent. It's a habit calves begin learning to enjoy almost immediately, long before they understand its practical purpose. 27. Young elephants are often seen rolling gleefully in mud puddles, seemingly for the simple, genuine joy of it. Only later does that same joyful habit quietly double as protection from sun and biting insects. 28. A calf typically begins developing its tusks around 1 to 2 years of age, though the first set is small and often barely visible. These early tusks are eventually replaced by larger, permanent ones. 29. Not every elephant will keep its tusks throughout life, and in some populations, tuskless elephants have become increasingly common. Researchers connect this shift to past decades of intense poaching pressure on tusked individuals. 30. We've reached the first third of tonight's list. Somewhere, right now, a baby elephant is very likely leaning gently into its mother's side, perfectly at ease. 31. Elephants are widely considered one of the most intelligent land animals on Earth, and calves begin showing signs of genuine problem-solving ability within their first few years. Even simple play often carries a quiet undercurrent of learning. 32. A baby elephant can recognize its own reflection, a rare cognitive ability shared by only a small handful of species, including humans, dolphins, and great apes. It's a small but genuinely striking sign of self-awareness. 33. Elephants have been observed using tools, including branches to swat flies, an ability young calves begin experimenting with as they grow more coordinated. Early attempts are often clumsy, but the instinct arrives remarkably young. 34. A calf's memory begins developing remarkably early, and elephants are famously capable of remembering specific individuals, places, and events for decades afterward. What a calf learns in its first years may quietly stay with it for a lifetime. 35. Elephant calves often sleep pressed closely against their mother, and very young calves may sleep lying fully on their side, something adult elephants rarely do. It's one of the more visibly vulnerable, tender postures of early elephant life. 36. Adult elephants typically sleep standing up for short stretches, but calves need considerably more rest, sometimes sleeping deeply for several hours at a time. Their bodies are still doing so much quiet, invisible growing. 37. A calf may occasionally snore while sleeping deeply, a small, surprisingly familiar sound coming from such an enormous, gentle animal. It's a detail many wildlife researchers describe with genuine, quiet affection. 38. Elephants are known to dream, based on the kind of brain activity recorded during their deepest sleep stages, much like many other highly intelligent mammals. What exactly fills a calf's dreams remains one of nature's gentler, unanswered questions. 39. A baby elephant relies heavily on touch, frequently reaching out its trunk to hold onto its mother's tail while walking, especially through unfamiliar or uncertain terrain. It's a small, steady tether through an otherwise enormous world. 40. This trunk-to-tail connection helps young calves stay safely in line during long herd migrations. It is a quiet, physical thread linking mother and baby together across miles of open, unfamiliar ground. 41. Elephant herds will often slow their entire pace to accommodate a young or tired calf. The whole group patiently adjusts around its smallest, slowest member without complaint. 42. If a calf falls behind, other members of the herd, not just its mother, will often circle back to check on it. They gently encourage it forward with soft touches and quiet, reassuring rumbles. 43. Elephants have been observed appearing to comfort a distressed calf by gently touching it with their trunk or standing protectively close beside it. The gesture seems remarkably close to something we would call tenderness. 44. A calf separated even briefly from its mother will often cry out with a distinct, distressed rumble. Nearby elephants typically respond with visible, immediate urgency, rushing to help however they can. 45. Elephants are one of the few animals known to show behaviors resembling grief, gently touching the bones or remains of deceased herd members, even years later. This quiet ritual has been observed across multiple generations of the same family. 46. Young calves have been observed standing quietly near a grieving family member, seemingly sensing the somber mood without fully understanding its cause. Even the youngest members of the herd seem gently attuned to sorrow. 47. A baby elephant's trunk can already detect scent remarkably well within its first weeks. This helps it recognize familiar herd members long before its eyesight has fully developed. 48. Elephants actually have relatively poor eyesight compared to many other mammals, relying instead heavily on smell, hearing, and touch to understand the world around them. A calf learns to navigate its world through senses other than sight first. 49. A calf's trunk becomes strong enough to lift small branches within its first year, though full trunk strength and coordination take considerably longer to develop. Each small success builds quietly toward genuine mastery. 50. We've reached the halfway point of tonight's list. Somewhere, gently, a calf is very likely resting its small trunk across its mother's leg, perfectly content. 51. Elephants are capable of using their trunks to drink, siphoning up several liters of water at once before curling the trunk inward to drink. It's an elegant, practiced motion that took considerable time to learn. 52. A baby elephant must practice this drinking technique for months before mastering it, often ending up with water sprayed clumsily across its own face in the process. The early attempts are as messy as they are endearing. 53. Calves are remarkably playful around water, splashing, spraying, and occasionally attempting, with limited early success, to fully submerge themselves. Water play seems to bring out some of a calf's purest joy. 54. Elephants are strong, natural swimmers, and calves are typically introduced to water gradually, often staying close beside their mother during their very first swim. Her steady presence makes the unfamiliar feel safe. 55. A young elephant can use its trunk almost like a built-in snorkel, allowing it to keep breathing even while its body is mostly submerged. It's a small, clever advantage built directly into its own anatomy. 56. Elephant calves are known to form close friendships with other calves their own age, playing together for years as they grow up side by side within the herd. These early bonds often carry real, lasting weight. 57. These early friendships can last a lifetime, with adult elephants sometimes recognized still traveling near companions they first bonded with as calves. Childhood closeness, it seems, is not only a human experience. 58. A calf typically begins eating solid vegetation within its first few months, though it continues nursing for comfort and nutrition for several years afterward. The transition happens gradually, never all at once. 59. Young elephants learn which plants are safe to eat largely by watching and mimicking their mother, an education that continues quietly for years. Trial, error, and patient observation slowly build up a calf's own knowledge. 60. An elephant calf's teeth develop gradually, and elephants are unusual in that they grow new sets of molars throughout much of their lives, replacing worn ones as they age. This lifelong dental renewal begins quietly in early calfhood. 61. Baby elephants have been observed gently mimicking the trumpeting calls of adults, though their own early attempts often sound considerably softer and less confident. It's a bit like a small child trying out a grown-up word for the first time. 62. A calf's trumpet call, the loud, sharp sound most people associate with elephants, is typically reserved for moments of excitement, alarm, or genuine urgency. It is not, contrary to popular imagination, their everyday, casual voice. 63. Elephants greet returning family members with an enthusiastic display involving trumpeting, ear flapping, and gentle touching, a joyful reunion ritual calves learn simply by watching. The excitement is genuinely, visibly contagious. 64. A young calf will often mimic this greeting behavior clumsily and enthusiastically, even before it fully understands the social meaning behind it. Learning the ritual, it seems, comes well before understanding it. 65. Elephant calves are protected fiercely by their entire herd, and adult females will often form a defensive circle around young calves if a potential threat approaches. The youngest are always kept safely, deliberately at the center. 66. A mother elephant will position herself between her calf and any perceived danger, using her own considerable size as a living, breathing shield. It is one of nature's clearest, most direct expressions of protective love. 67. Male calves typically leave their birth herd around the age of 12 to 14, eventually living a more solitary or loosely social life as adults. It marks a quiet, gradual shift from the close-knit world of early calfhood. 68. Female calves, by contrast, generally remain within their birth herd for their entire lives, surrounded by the very same family that raised them. The bonds formed in infancy often simply continue, unbroken, into old age. 69. A young elephant's bond with its mother remains remarkably strong well into adulthood, and adult daughters have been observed staying close to elderly mothers for decades. Some family bonds, it seems, are never truly outgrown. 70. Elephants have excellent long-term memory for locations, and a calf begins learning migration routes and water sources by simply, patiently following its elders. Every journey doubles quietly as a lesson. 71. A single matriarch's memory of distant water sources, sometimes recalled from droughts decades earlier, can be essential to an entire herd's survival, including its youngest calves. Her memory becomes, quite literally, a lifeline. 72. Baby elephants have been documented showing apparent empathy, gently comforting other distressed calves even when the distress wasn't directly their own. Even the very young seem to carry a kind of instinctive, gentle kindness. 73. Elephants are among the very few animals known to pass what researchers call the mirror self-recognition test, suggesting a genuine, developing sense of self-awareness beginning in early life. It places them among a remarkably small, select group of species. 74. A calf's skin, though tough as an adult, remains sensitive enough as a baby that it relies on shade and its mother's shadow to avoid harsh, direct sun. Her body becomes, quite literally, its first shelter. 75. Mother elephants have been observed using their own body and ears to create shade for a resting calf during the hottest part of the day. It's a small, quiet act of care repeated countless times. 76. A newborn calf's trunk is initially too weak and uncoordinated to grasp objects properly, a skill it slowly refines through months of clumsy, genuine practice. Patience, more than instinct alone, builds true trunk mastery. 77. Elephants can use their trunks with astonishing precision as adults, capable of picking up something as small and delicate as a single blade of grass. That same precision begins as fumbling, hopeful practice in early calfhood. 78. A baby elephant's playful trunk swinging is believed to help strengthen the muscles it will eventually rely on for feeding, drinking, and communicating. Even idle play, it turns out, is quietly purposeful. 79. Elephant calves have been observed practicing trumpet calls quietly, almost as if rehearsing before attempting the sound in front of the rest of the herd. It's a small, private rehearsal before a much louder debut. 80. A calf typically reaches its mother's shoulder height by around 6 to 8 years of age, though full adult size takes considerably longer to reach. Growing into an elephant's full frame is, quite literally, a lifelong process. 81. Elephants continue growing slowly throughout much of their lives, meaning even a fully grown adult may still be gradually, gently increasing in size. There is, in a sense, no single moment when an elephant is truly finished growing. 82. A baby elephant's ears in African species are famously shaped somewhat like the African continent itself, a detail wildlife guides often point out fondly to visitors. It's a small, charming coincidence of nature. 83. Asian elephant calves have proportionally smaller ears than their African cousins, along with a more rounded back and a slightly different trunk tip shape. Each species carries its own small, distinctive signature. 84. Despite these differences, both African and Asian elephant calves share the very same deep reliance on their mother and herd during their earliest years of life. The tenderness of early elephant life crosses every continent equally. 85. A calf typically begins testing small, careful independence around age 2 or 3, wandering a little farther before instinctively hurrying back to its mother's side. Confidence grows slowly, one short, brave step at a time. 86. Elephant mothers are known to gently discipline calves with a soft trunk swat or a low, warning rumble, rarely anything harsher than that. Correction, even here, tends to stay remarkably gentle. 87. A young elephant learns social boundaries gradually, often through gentle correction from older, more experienced females within its own extended family. The whole herd quietly shares in the work of raising it well. 88. Baby elephants have been seen leaning their entire body weight against their mother's leg while resting, seemingly seeking both comfort and reassurance at once. It's a small, familiar gesture of trust. 89. A calf's trunk contains a heightened concentration of nerve endings, making it remarkably sensitive, useful for both delicate tasks and simple, tender affection. The very same trunk that grips a branch can also offer a gentle touch. 90. Elephants often show affection through gentle trunk touches, and a calf reaching out to touch its mother's face is a common, tender sight within any herd. It is, in its own quiet way, a small embrace. 91. A newborn calf can typically walk within just a few hours of birth, an urgent necessity in the wild, where the herd cannot always afford to linger long in one place. Survival, from the very first hour, asks for quick, determined effort. 92. Despite this early mobility, calves remain notably clumsy for months, often tripping over roots, stumbling in mud, or misjudging the width of their own growing legs. Grace, for a young elephant, takes real time to arrive. 93. Elephant calves in captivity and sanctuaries have been observed forming close bonds not only with other elephants but with their human caretakers as well. Trust, once offered, seems to run remarkably deep. 94. Orphan elephant calves, cared for in dedicated rescue and rehabilitation centers, are often given a blanket or companion to sleep beside, mimicking the closeness of a mother's side. Even in loss, caretakers work gently to recreate that same sense of safety. 95. Caretakers at such centers have described how deeply orphan calves can grieve the loss of their mother, requiring patient, gentle care to slowly rebuild a sense of safety. Healing, for a calf, happens slowly, and always with kindness. 96. Many rescued calves eventually form new, genuine bonds within a surrogate herd, showing the same devoted social instincts they were born with, even after early loss. The capacity for connection, it seems, never truly disappears. 97. Elephants can live 60 years or more in the wild, meaning the bond formed between a mother and her calf in those very first tender years may quietly last a lifetime. What begins in infancy often simply continues, gently, for decades. 98. A baby elephant's earliest lessons, how to use its trunk, how to recognize danger, how to belong within a herd, are all taught gently, patiently, surrounded by family. Nothing essential is ever learned truly alone. 99. Even fully grown, an elephant often still leans on the very same quiet instincts first learned as a calf, wrapped safely within its mother's shadow. Some early lessons, it seems, are simply never outgrown. 100. And perhaps the softest truth of all is simply this, that somewhere tonight, a small elephant is curled close beside its mother, safe, warm, and entirely unaware of how deeply, gently loved it already is. We have reached the end of tonight's 100 small, tender truths, each one a gentle glimpse into the quiet, devoted world a baby elephant is born straight into. We touched trunks too clumsy to control and ears still growing into their final shape, mud baths taken purely for joy and trunk-to-tail lines held tightly through long, uncertain journeys. We remembered mothers who become living shields, herds that slow their entire pace for a single tired calf, and elephants who return, even years later, to gently touch the bones of those they've lost. There is something quietly worth carrying from a story built entirely around care like this one, a reminder that tenderness, patience, and steady, watchful love are not uniquely human qualities at all, but something the natural world seems to understand just as deeply, in its own enormous, gentle way. If tonight's 100 gentle facts were worth your time, a like, a subscribe, or a thought left below helps the Sleep Lab stay open for the next curious, sleepy mind who finds their way here. And if you're still awake, there's another story waiting just beyond this one, whenever you're ready for it. But for now, let these 100 small truths settle around you the way a herd settles quietly for the night, close together, unhurried, and entirely at peace. Let your body grow heavy. Let your breathing slow. Sleep well. And good night.